Okay, in the first video, we kind of covered the basics of scanning for insider trading activity, looked at a couple of websites I don't like. I led you to GuruFocus, which I think is probably the best site for this. I showed you how to go to the scanner, run a really basic scan, just scanning for stocks that have been bought by a couple of insiders over a certain dollar amount in the last 30 or 45 days. And I began doing the analysis on that. And I showed you this chart here, which is really my first stop in analyzing any stock, just showing me the last few years of insider buying and selling, and how what we're looking for is a stock that does not get routine insider buying, that the insiders don't very often buy, and then suddenly we're getting this big influx of insider purchases. And this is really probably the number one thing I want to see, this top chart here. I want to see that, hey, here's this company where no one has really bought much the last 3, 4, 5 years, and now suddenly, out of nowhere, all at the same time, we got several folks buying the stock in big size in their personal accounts. I mean, this is a really I can't overvalue this first chart here and its significance. When you see a good one of these, I'm really going to dive deep into the stock. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, below this is the individual trades. We looked at this one a little bit, how a couple of these are from large funds, but then we have a couple of really good buys, $158,000 from the chief financial officer, $400,000 from a senior vice president, chief procurement officer, and then another $500,000 from the chief operations officer. So these are good trades. We looked at the shares they own, how many they bought, how big it was in relation to that. Let's dig into each of these insiders. So we're just going to start at the top here with Tony, I don't know how you say that, Wenner, I guess. Click on their name, and it's going to give you a couple of things. Now, at the top here, you're going to have this pie graph showing their portfolio of holdings. Now, heads up, it can't dig into their personal accounts, okay? We can't go pull their personal E-Trade or Fidelity accounts, see exactly what they own. What we have access to are their insider trades. So any stocks they've purchased as an insider, meaning they own at least 10% of the company, they hold a position in that company, they were on the board of directors. And it seems like it'd be like this. Well, they're only going to be an insider at one company, right? Well, not necessarily. A lot of folks are on the board of directors for many companies. Boards of directors are generally made up of other folks in that industry who have experience that could help that company. So, for example, if one guy founded a large biotech company that got sold for $10 billion and he's sort of a figure in that industry, a lot of these smaller biotech companies will go to this guy and say, hey, we'd love to have you on our board of directors. We can offer you a salary of $200,000 a year. All you got to do is come to one meeting a quarter, but we'd love your input. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and you give us a little bit of guidance in this space since you know it so well. So don't be surprised when you come across an insider and he's on the board of directors at 4 or 5 different companies all within that sector. But obviously it's not the case here for this insider. As you see, there's only one trade. Obviously, it's going to be 100% Dave & Buster's, and they bought here this most recent trade on October 14th. So first of all, we know we have a first-time buyer here. Now, it doesn't say in this site how long they've been in this position, but I've got a really fancy tool I use, and it's called Google. So all I will really do is just Google this person and the company, and you'll generally get an idea of when they joined. So let's just take a look here. Just the person's name and the company. If you have LinkedIn, you can kind of see how long they've been in there. I don't do the social media thing, so I don't have a LinkedIn account. I probably can't see that. All right, here you go. And all we're looking for is a date range. And here's one right here. Whoops. On July, let me blow this up. On July 7th, 2022, Dave & Buster's appointed Tom Weiner as its Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer effective August 1st. Okay. So you see here he's a CEO of Big Shots Golf. He did some other things. So this, believe it or not, is relative to me. This devalues that trade for me because he joined August 1st, 2022. As I'm recording this video, it is October 22nd, 2022. So he's only been there for 3 months. So while it's a good trade, It would be far more significant to me if he'd been there for 3, 4, 5 years and this is his first buy. It doesn't make it a bad trade, but I just want to take that with a grain of salt. And I like to call these show of faith buys. I haven't heard this is the case, but I see this a lot, especially with high-ranking positions. He's the chief operations officer, big time with like CEOs. I'll often see when they join a company, they'll make a good-sized buy in a stock in the first few months. And I call that a show of faith buy because it really just feels like they're letting the market know, hey, I believe in this company. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to take a position in this. Very, very often I see these buys. It's not a bad sign. It doesn't mean it's negative, but it's not near as good, again, as someone who's been there for a long time and only now buying for the first time. But let's dig in. Let's go to the next guy. This Les Lenner, I guess would be how you pronounce it. Once again, same thing here, first time buy. I'm going to do the same thing we did. Let's see how long Les has been with the company. And, okay, here it is, July 11th, 2022. Company announced a series of executive appointments, including this guy completed. So this guy also joined the company. So it sounds like Dave & Buster's is doing a bit of a corporate shakeup. They're trying to fix things with the stock. They've hired some new blood to come in there. And these guys are, again, showing the market they believe in this company. Let's look at the third guy, Chief Financial Officer. Now, here's a bit of a spread here. You see he's got stock in Las Vegas Sands, Live One, Light & Wonder, as well as Dave & Buster's. Looks like he was the chief financial officer of this company here, chief financial officer of Light & Wonder, the chief accounting officer of Las Vegas Sands. These C-level execs, they kind of get traded like baseball cards. Don't be surprised when you see this. It's sort of like college football coaches. Instead of finding a new coach and bringing them up, they just bounce around from one school to the other. I don't know why they do this, but this guy's obviously been around the block and worked at a few companies. I would be willing to bet he's fairly new at this company as well, but let's take a look. And here we go here. It looks like December. You find us pretty quickly. December 2021. Here's December 2021. They've named Michael Cordieri as Chief Financial Officer. Okay, so this guy's only been there about 10 months. So while these buys are good, they're going to lose significance to me because these are all freshly appointed people buying into the company. It just is not as strong. Could this trade work out? Absolutely, but it's not near as strong as one where these insiders have worked there for a while. So I'm going to just go ahead and move on to the next stock. I don't love that one. Let's keep diving in. Look at this one, Kinetic Holdings, KNTK. Really quickly, once again, just go over to the Insider tab. First thing I'm going to do is look at our chart. Okay, now this is obviously a new company. Notice that this is a 3-year chart. It only goes back to March of 2022. What's that tell me? It tells me this company has only been trading since March 2022. So this is a company that just went public 7 or 8 months ago. We've got a couple of buys in here. And I'm immediately writing this one off. This is how long it takes me to analyze these off the top. Immediately writing it off. Why? Well, there's 2 buys from an insider on September 30th. Look at the size of these positions. 5,000 shares, and he owns 2.9 million. 25,000 shares, again, owns 2. So he's only increasing his position by a fraction of a percent. I'm just not interested. I've got 80 stocks to go through. I'm not wasting my time. This will takes me, when I'm going through them, 10 seconds. It's a new company. I'm already not that interested. And they're tiny buys. Moving on to the next one. Opco Health, OPK. Let's keep rolling. Boom. Flip to the Insider tab. Look at our chart. Boom. Not interested already. This one's off my list. Why? They buy all the time. Insiders are buying this stock every single month. In addition to that, we look at the volume. These last 2 months are actually on the low side of what we've seen. Now, I might have been interested in this back in here. You see a big spike. It's much higher than normal. And you see, look at all these insider buys back here, early 2020. I mean, they clearly know what they're doing. OPK is the stock. Let's look at when these buys are over here, okay? Basically from October of 2019 through April of 2020. Big high number of buys, big higher volume over here. Let's look at what was happening with that stock during that time period. So this is when they were buying. It was October, so right in here to April of 2020. So right there. That's when that big cluster of insider buying took place. Now, that would have worked out pretty well. Obviously, you wouldn't want to hold it for 2 years, but this stock, had you followed the insiders back there, ran up 300% over the next few months. Really well timed. So I could be enticing this on a big surge in volume, but right now there's nothing I like about this. I don't need to go any further. I don't care who the buys are. I'm just not interested. It's not opportune buying. Let's go to the next one. Varus Ritual, VRE. Again, straight to the insider tab, not dilly-dallying around. Okay, I might be interested in this one. Now, we have a little less than 3 years. You see the company looks like it went public around October of 2019. Nope, I'm sorry. It's just a 3-year chart. It is longer than that. But this looks a little better, right? We don't see a lot of insider buying in this one. No insider selling. And we've got the highest volume of insider buying that's taken place this month in at least 3 years. So let's see who's doing the buying. The large ones, and has been a pretty consistent buyer, is this director, Akiva Kotz, and I'm probably botching these names, but we have a couple here. The CEO made a big buy, and then this director made 2 buys. So the CEO made a pretty good-sized buy. I mean, he came in for $1 million, 909. Remember, this column here is in thousands, so if it's 995, it's 995,000. If it's 8,000, it's 8 million. Came in for $1 million, increased his position, a decent amount. Has some decent ads here from this director. So I'm intrigued by this one. Okay, I'm going to dig a little bit further. So notice how quickly wrote off the others. Immediately said, nope, not something I'm interested in. This one, okay, looking a little better. Is it going to be a buy? I don't know yet, but it could be. Let's go ahead and begin looking at these insiders. Let's start with our chief executive officer. Okay, so the first buy at this company for any stock from this insider. Nia Mabad. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and Google this one as usual. Same with the company, Varus. Just trying to get any kind of idea for how long they've been at the company. There it is. Matt Kelly Realty names. Whoops. He's Mabad Nia as CEO, and this took place on... There's a date on this article. There it is. March of 2021. Okay, so right as I said, right now it's October 2022. So this person's been a CEO for 18 months or so. Okay, and now they're buying for the first time. Okay, that's a good sign. Got a first-time buy from the chief executive officer. Now this person obviously buys a lot. Let's take a look at their buys. So they began buying fairly heavily in March of 2021. Made some back-to-back buys here. Came in for a good chunk of this stock. 6 million, 5 million, 3 million, 3 million, around $20 million worth. But then they've almost doubled up again. So here this month they started buying again at around $11 a share. So this one's somewhat intriguing. Got a first-time buy from the CEO after 18 months. We have consistent buying from the director. Doesn't tell us a whole lot, but I kind of want to go to the chart and take a look at this one. See what we have. So the company's Varus VRE. And looks like they were buying off the lows here. So this one, unfortunately, is kind of already run. let's see, when were they buying? Let me go back to our page here. So the purchases here took place October 11th and 14th. Now, right now, it's October the 27th when I'm doing this, when I'm recording this course. So these purchases took place 2 weeks ago. Had you been scanning this in real time, remember, insiders have to report within 48 hours. So if he bought on the 11th, this would have been on the site either the 12th or the 13th at the latest. So these would have been there. So these purchases came right here, the 11th and the 14th. So you would have seen these in plenty of time before this gap up, and had you followed them, you know, you'd be up 30% already on the stock in 2 weeks. So again, this is just proof this method works. These guys have inside information. They often, as you see, blatantly buy right before good news. I don't know what the news is. Let's take a look and see. This would have been on the 20th or so. And there it is. Kushner Company offers to buy Veris Residential at $16 a share. Where was the stock trading at the time? $12 a share, so it jumped to $16. Now, do you think the CEO and his big director might have known they're getting an offer in a couple days? Of course they knew. Okay, these guys are not dum-dums. And so this would have been a great win. Now, if it's me, if I had taken this trade, I'm up 30% in a couple of weeks. The offer is at $16 a share. It's pretty much where it's trading right now. I'd be going ahead and closing this out as a win. If you bought the option, you're probably, if you bought a call option instead, you're probably up a couple 100% on this one. I'd be taking it. Now, 30% win is not going to put you in retirement. You're not done trading altogether. But look, you knock out a 30% win in a couple of weeks. I think that's fantastic. You played the news. You did well. So, again, I didn't know these were coming. I haven't pre-screened these. I'm doing this live for you with this class to make it as real as possible. But, again, it just shows you the power of this approach. So that would have been a good one, right? A couple of buys there. A CEO buying for the first time in 18 months. The size of the trades is good, right? You got $1 million here as the first-time buy. You've got, these $12 million purchases. So they're increasing their position by a good amount. And there's not really a hard rule of thumb. It's not like these buys need to be at least, $127,000 or it needs to be at least this. But just use some common sense, right? If you want to Google this guy's net worth or what their salary is, you can usually find this stuff. You can get an even better idea, right? Okay, this guy makes, $1 million a year. He's putting $1 million in the stock. That's pretty big. I mean, if you put your whole year's salary into a stock, that's pretty good conviction. You may say, oh, look, this guy's worth $300 million, and he's buying $1 million worth. Well, that's a little less significant. Okay, so this would have been a good one, but I don't think there's any opportunity there. The move's already happened. Let's continue. B. Riley Financial. I know this is one that sees a lot of insider buying. I see it all the time when I run my scans. And you'll see that right here on the chart. So, again, I'm immediately not interested in the stock. I don't think it's going down, but it's not opportune buying. And that's really what we're after. Think about the edge we have here. If you identify, oh, look, insiders are buying a stock that they buy every single month or every other month, it's not telling you bad information, but it's not telling you anything good. It's not opportune. And that's what we're after is opportune insider buying. We're after, why are all these people buying suddenly, completely out of nowhere when they never do? Why is 7 of the members of the board of directors buying a stock in the same week? And most of these guys have been there for years, have never owned a single share. That's what we're after. Okay, we're not trying to determine every single stock's going to go up or down. We're simply trying to filter out those ones that make our spidey senses tingle, that make us go, this seems odd. This seems like people know something, and this is obviously not that. Let's continue. Mativ Holdings. They have no idea what this stock is. And heads up, you're going to learn about a lot of companies doing this. You're not ever going to be turning over Googles and Amazons and Facebooks. You're turning over these smaller stocks that are off the radar you likely would not have heard of otherwise. And it's one of the reasons I like this, another reason I like this approach a lot. Okay, so first of all, with this one, the chart looks good. No insider buying, no activity, a big flurry that started basically in May has continued to today. I don't, it's not perfect. I don't love there's a big cluster here in May and June, and as you see here, the line of the chart, the stock continued to go down. They're continuing to buy it. I would like it if it was like the first wave of that, but nonetheless, we'll keep going here. And I mean, pretty quickly you see who the big buyer is. This guy, Jeffrey Keenan, who's a director in his company, just buys all the time. I mean, he buy all the way up. He's roped in another director, this William Cook, to begin buying. There's also Anderson Warlick in here buying. These are okay. President and CEO is buying down in here. A couple back-to-back buys in August. I'll tell you what scares me about this. First of all, it's a lot of insider buys, so initially it looks good. The last one was September the 19th, and again, as you can see in the top right corner of my screen, today is October the 27th. So it's been 6 weeks or so since any insiders bought. Big cluster in August, September. No doubt about that whatsoever. Let's look at the chart here. And this is, we always want to kind of blend the chart with the insider action we're seeing. The big cluster came August, September, which is all here. The stock hasn't really gone anywhere. So I'm not in love with it. Obviously, from a technical point of view, the stock looks terrible. It's in a pretty confirmed downtrend. It's holding below its 200-day moving average. But we're not here to talk about chart reading. We're here to talk about insiders. So that's just my take on it. This one would be okay for me. Not great, just because they've been buying for several months and the stock hasn't moved. It's a lot of money been thrown into this stock, somewhere in the neighborhood of, 150, 300,000, 12,000, 40,000, 300, 500, several $1 million in trades that have taken place in the last few months. And they were buying big heavily in May as well. And the stock still has not gone anywhere. So this Jeffrey Keenan, the primary buyer, began buying back here in May. And this is not small potatoes. He went in for 325,000, 290,000, 106. This is $1.5 million in a couple of weeks he threw into the stock, or $1 million, doing some quick math here. Well, he's been buying since May. It's now the end of October. It's been 5 months and the stock hasn't gone anywhere. So to me, whatever they were buying for has not happened. I much prefer, there's been very little, there's a big cluster buy that's happened in the last 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, not the last 3, 4, 5 months. And so while this trade may work out, so far it hasn't. They're still buying hand over fist. The stock's been holding, going nowhere for 5 months. It's not the top of my list. I'm really not that interested in this one, so I'm going to move on. Immunovant, IMVT. Let's take a look at this one. Okay, now this one looks a little bit better. Now, this is why I like having both these charts at the top, one for the number of insider buys, one for the volume. When you look at the number of insider buys and sells, you see a lot of selling going on here. But again, it's the number of sales. So if one guy came in and sold 100 shares one day and then another 100 the next week, he may have only sold $2,000 worth of stock, but it's going to show up as 2 insider buys or 2 insider sells, whatever that may be. So the number is less significant to me than the volume, all things being considered. And we do have a spike in volume over here on the right chart. So it's the highest cluster of insider buying we've seen since September of 2020, so in 2 years. So that is actually a good thing. Let's see where these buys were coming from. And, okay, I'm no longer interested. So you can probably tell pretty quickly why I'm not interested. But it's who did the buying. And this is Rovient Sciences. Their position is a 10% owner. If you remember in the last video, I told you the SEC definition of an insider includes 10% owners. So basically it's high-level executives, CEO, CFO, board members, chief marketing officers, chief operations officer, things like that. But also 10% owners. And that's often, when you hear 10% owner, you're picturing an individual person who owns 10% of the stock, but often it is a fund or an ETF, an exchange-traded fund, or a mutual fund that owns a big piece. This is Rovient Sciences, LTD. And you can Google this and see what it is, but I'd be willing to bet this is either an exchange-traded fund or an investment fund designated to owning healthcare stocks or biotech stocks, something to that effect. And once they own 10% or more of those shares, they are now classified as an insider. So you'll see Berkshire Hathaway pull up on some of these, which is Warren Buffett's company. They're worth $100 billion. When they take a position, it's a big position. It's more than 10%. They become an insider. But look at the shares they bought. 416,000 shares for $2.5 million. That's not chump change, but it is compared to what they own, which is 73 million shares at $63. So they own, what is that? Roughly $450 million worth of this stock. So they've increased their position by 0.5%, a half of 1%. It's not significant. It's likely just rebalancing. These big mutual funds, these investment funds will say, okay, we want to put 3% of our portfolio into this stock, 8% in this stock. And at the end of the quarter, notice this came on October 6th, right there at the beginning of the new quarter, they'll rebalance. Say, well, we wanted to maintain 3%. The stock's come down a little. It's now only 2.8% of our portfolio. Add however many shares we need to get it back to 3%, and that's what's happened here. So this to me is not opportune. It's simply rebalancing. It's not significant. So if we take that trade out, all we have here is this one buy from a company director, Frank Torti, for 20,000 shares, $116,000 buy, very small in relation to his total portfolio. We can look at his activities just for the fun of it. This looks like his first buy here, interestingly. Now, which brings up another point. You're probably wondering to yourself, how is that possible? How is it his first insider buy if he owns 300,000, plus shares? Well, there's a couple things that could have happened. Either these shares were gifted to him and he received them over the years as maybe compensation for either a position with the company or his director role, or they took place as purchases maybe before he became a director, before he was technically an insider, didn't have to file a Form 4. So if me, Ross Givens, an individual, wants to buy up 400,000 shares of this company, I can do it. I'm not an insider, buy it up. If the next week to go, hey, Mr. Givens, we've noticed you got a big position in our stock. We've heard you know a lot about biotechs, like to offer you a position as a board of director. It's not going to happen. They're not going to do that. But if it did, then my next buy would show up as an insider buy, because at that point I'm an insider. So this one, I'm not interested. It's fine, but it's going to be off my list. I'm moving on. All right. Ocean Engineering International. Let's take a look at this one. OII. Straight to the insider tab. And, okay, this one looks okay. It's not just blowing me away, but I like what I'm seeing. Obviously, we got the big spike here in March of 2020, which for those of you who weren't trading then, that the COVID sell-off, that was the bottom of the market in COVID. We saw a lot of insiders buying right then because they're very good at this. They have very great timing, and so obviously it was a well-timed buy. The stock was trading for around $4 at the time. It ran up to $16 over the next 15 months, so they did very well here. And then we're seeing a spike for the first time in a while. Here, let's see who's doing the buying. All right, now at first glance, this one I really like. I really like what I'm seeing here because we have a nice tight cluster buy from 4 different insiders. You could say, 3 different insiders, 4 buys. So Stephen Webster, a director, bought twice. Earl Childress, the senior VP and chief commercial officer, bought here. And then Karen Beachy, another company director, bought here. These aren't huge buys in either dollar terms or percentage increases, but they're not small potatoes either. Stephen Webster came in for roughly, if you add these together, $270,000. So he added, he had 100,000 shares, added 35,000 more. Earl Childress increased their position from roughly 70,000 to 80,000. And the Karen Beachy ad is pretty small to me, $20,000, not really grabbing my attention. But for some stocks, these are big buys depending on, not every company is Apple or ExxonMobil. Some of these are small companies where these people may only make, $80,000, $100,000, $150,000 a year, and that would make these that much more significant. This is that cluster buy you see in March. So to give you an idea of what a really good one looks like, if you were running this scan in March or April of 2020 and you saw this, see the difference there. Now, again, these increases aren't huge, but look at the big cluster buy. Look at how many people are buying. You got let me go to like 40 per page to see if there is even more. Yeah, there was. So look at all these buys here, and I'm focusing on this area between here and here. Look at all these in a 2-week period. The president and CEO came in for 10,000. the VP and Chief Financial Officer, the Chief Accounting Officer, the Senior Vice President of Business Development, the Senior Vice President of Advanced Technologies, the General Counsel, the Operations Support, VP of Asset Integrity, and a Company Director. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 insider buys in a 1-week period. So even though these weren't all huge in dollar terms, they were still, it's still painting that picture, $50,000, $100,000, $70,000 at a time, and they all got in right here around, anywhere from $5 to, $2.50 in March of 2020. Let's look at that chart, and you'll see why that's significant. It's OII. Which ironically is up huge today. It's up 20% today. This is March 2020, between $2.50 and $5 a share. Right there. Now, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a senior, advanced market technician to know that's a pretty damn good time to buy that stock. And had you followed that and you've seen that, if you got in toward the end there, call it $3-4 a share, you still had the chance to make 370% over the next year or so in that stock. And very quickly you had a nice gain. Even this move here, the stock tripled in the next 3 months, which you would have you should have been taking profits on the way up into this. So that's what a really good one looks like. And I hate to go hindsight and go, oh, this would have been, woulda, shoulda, coulda. I'm not trying to do that. Obviously, March 2020 is a great time to buy just about anything, but this is what a great, a wonderful cluster buy looks like, is when you get that. Big window like this with lots of insiders all buying all at the same time, piling in, not wasting any time. So that looks very, very good. So we have a decent little insider buy here. Not as huge, but the buy number is a little bit larger. We've got several of these. So these actually look pretty good. These 4 insider buys up here right across the top, I think look really strong. We've got 3 different insiders. One came in twice. Good sized numbers. This would be very strong to me. So all these came September 23rd to 29th. Let's go back to the chart and see. Again, it just so happens stock's up big today. I swear I didn't pre-screen these. We're a little bit late to this one, but these all came in September 23rd to 29th. So they all bought between right here. Wow, look at that. That's the 29th, that's the 23rd. They all bought right here. That's where that cluster buy took place. So you see the power of this? Are you starting to understand why I follow insiders? Now look, what did this chart look like at the time? When you pull up this chart on that date, you're running your scans, you see this, what would you think? It looks like crap, let's be honest. It's a terrible looking chart. It's a textbook downtrend, lower lows, lower highs. Nothing about this chart says buy whatsoever. But following insiders has nothing to do with technical analysis. We're following people who know news before it comes out. And look what's happened with this stock. It just went. It's up. You're up 75% in a month. In a month. In October of 2022, when the stock market is 10% off 2-year lows, you're up 75% in the stock in 30 days. Okay? This is the power of following insiders. It's actually working out pretty great. A lot of good examples here we're seeing. So, probably wouldn't take the trade now. It's already up 75%. That goes without saying. But if you're running this scan once a week, twice a week, you're going to find these in real time. You're going to see the ones where, hey, they just bought 2 days ago, 3 days ago. There's a cluster buy last week. That's going to get you into these in plenty of time. I always show some examples. Every once in a while, insider will buy and the stock goes up the next day. But normally, the good ones look something like this. Okay, they look something like this one where the insiders bought. Oh, it starts making a move, right? It's up 12% that day. It's flowing around, and then you get the big follow through. So this is, when they're being little tricky dicks and they're being sneaky about it, it's a few weeks, couple months, you should see the move. So that one looks really good. Let's go and look at one more just for the heck of it. It was Geldwin Holding, Rocket Companies. I don't know. I'm just going to pick one of these here. Go to the Insider tab once again. This one, I don't know. I mean, I see a number of insiders buying. Obviously, the volume looks low compared to the selling, which is kind of skewed it off. We'll see. All right, this one, boom, off my list. Not interested. Why am I not interested in this one? It's not a person. It's this Turtle Creek Asset Management, like I told you about, a big equity investment fund. They're a 10% owner. They're buying basically every week in the stock. But look how much they're increasing their position by. 0.13%, 0.02%, 1%, 0.23%. Yeah, they're buying $250,000 at a time, but they own 13 million shares at $10. So they own $100 plus million a position in the stock. So that's what this big cluster and the number of buying is here. This is them just actively building a position in the stock. And look, they may be right. It may work out. But they're not buying based on news they know the company's getting bought out. They're not buying because they happen to know earnings are really good or a new product is selling well. They're buying for fundamental reasons why asset managers buy. They're trying to build up a big position in this JELD-WIN stock, JELD, and as institutions do, it takes them several months often to build that position. But they've been doing it for the last several months, and so far, they're not making any money on this thing. I mean, they began buying, when is this? Let's look at this chart. They began buying in March pretty heavily. This is $8. Let's go back and see when they began buying here. Yeah, they began buying, look at this, at $23 a share. They kept buying at 21 and 20 and 13. They've been buying all the way down. These guys are getting hammered. They've been buying since right here, and they keep buying and keep buying and keep buying and keep buying and keep buying. Now, I don't know about you. Maybe you have a different approach to money. Maybe you like to lose. Maybe you like to hold things on the down. This is not my idea of a good time. This is nothing I want to do. If I buy a stock at 23 and it's down 60%, I've made a bad decision. I am wrong. Something has not gone right. I'm sure as hell not going to continue to buy all the way down until I'm out of money and bankrupt. But these big funds, especially the value ones, take a different approach. They may be buying for over the course of 3, 5, 10-year time horizon. I don't know if that's the case. They may think it's an even better buy here, but this is not the kind of activity I want to have any hand in. I definitely don't want my money in, so this is one I'm not interested in. But that's kind of how I look at these and how you kind of dig into each of these individual insiders. And we're going to go a little bit further. I'm going to show you some best practices in the next video, things I look for, which insiders I tend to put more weight into, and a few other intricacies of this method. But this video should have been very eye-opening to you. And we've taken our time. I realize this video is, I don't even know how long it ended up being, 30 minutes, an hour, something like that. And we've only gone through, 6, 7 stocks. But we've gone through each of these very slowly to teach you how this stuff works. And as you get more experience with this, and as you become more well-versed in it, you'll begin to be able to scan through. You'll be able to do those 7 or 8 stocks we went through in 5 minutes. And you'll just quickly go, nope, nope, nope. Maybe on this one, let me see, nope. And then you'll find if you go through 40, 50 stocks, you may find 2, 3, or 4 that really grab your attention. And those you may spend 20, 30, 40 minutes on. You may dig into this one. You may, Google what's going on with the company. Is there any news? Who are these insiders? How long have they been here? What's their track record like? And you'll kind of go down the rabbit hole there to really dig in. But you're only going to need to do that with a small number of stocks, the ones that have checked all your boxes and look great by all our screening criteria. Then and only then do you need to really dig down and do some research on that company, and we'll talk about that, as well as going through the actual Form 4. I want to show you what those look like, how to read each thing on the Form 4, and really round out your knowledge of this insider trading. So go ahead, check out the next video, and we'll dive a little bit deeper.